Welcome back to the Loud Sound Epicenter podcast. We are back finally with Thomas777. Thank you for returning to the show this week. And of course, one of our regulars, one of our best friends, Jack Burden. Jay, thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, Ace.
So I am, like I said last time, still pretty lightheaded from jet lag, still pretty lightheaded from lack of food consumption. It's been a very strange couple of days, and I am still recovering from Vegas. And one of the big news while I was over there was a reunion announced that many people did not expect for the very notorious metal band from the 90s, Pantera. And I wanted to talk to Thomas about this because obviously there's a lot of overlap with some of the identity that Pantera kind of implicitly has. I had a discussion with Joel Davis over on Telegram a few days ago, and we were talking about how, politics is sort of authentic expression, and even a band like Pantera, even if they're not explicitly political, there's definitely that, I don't know, that kind of Peckerwood style that I think Thomas can definitely relate to. So I just wanted to pick your brain, Thomas. What was your response to hearing that news, which was pretty unexpected?
A couple things. I mean, yeah, your point. People who didn't live through the '90s. Like I said, I'm always making the point at how much at loggerheads the races were then. Like things were really, really hostile. In a way that was quite dangerous, frankly. In a way it's not today. I mean, there's obviously this in a very contrived way, like the regime is attempting to play the races off against one another. But there were the '90s really were the kind of it was on the tail end of that of a cycle of social violence that lasted from the early to mid '60s to the early to mid '90s, and it had kind of it reached kind of a secondary peak in the early '90s before it fizzled out. And you know what? Everything was implicitly political, especially like in subcultures in those days too, because this was, I mean, pre-consumer internet. Subcultures developed from people going to like brick and mortar locations and like going to shows and developing their social circle around what bands they went to see on the regular. And Pantera definitely was like skinheads loved Pantera, but so did like a lot of so did a lot of dudes who dug like East Coast hardcore, and so did a lot of guys who were just kind of like thrash oriented metalheads. But so Pantera was like in the thick of that, and yeah, that generated a lot of controversy. But there's two things about the Pantera reunion. Like, I mean, first of all, it's only Rex Brown and Phil, because the Abbott brothers are gone, and like Vinny Abbott, I speculate his brother being murdered really impacted him, because I mean he just kind of faded away from the public eye and just died. And the Pantera projects of the individual members after the band broke up, Phil Anselmo, some of the stuff he's done solo is impressive. Superjoint Ritual, I think, was pretty good, at least the early iterations of it. I thought some of the Down albums were pretty good. Some of the stuff he's done, like Viking Crown, is like cringe as fuck. But I thought the Abbott brothers, I thought Damage Plan was terrible, like honestly, and it was just garbage. Like, and then Vinnie Paul, he was jamming with one of these idiots, like was one of these like Walmart rock type idiots, like in some, I can't, my memory is really failing me today. It was some like fucktard Walmart band called like Hell Yeah or something, like, and it just like embarrassing shit, man. And like it surprised me. I mean, Vinny was always kind of like the Abbott brothers' dad. He was a music industry guy, and like he was in the Nashville scene, And Vinny, he always had impressive. He always had he like the business side of the music was always kind of his wheelhouse. Okay, so that's fine. Like Vinnie Paul ended up in kind of these second rate like redneck bands. that didn't really surprise me. But Dimebag, Dimebag's one of these guys. He's almost like Steve Vai in some ways. Like his playing style wasn't. I mean, I think he was every bit as much a virtuoso, but it's like Steve Vai was like fucking awesome when he was like playing with David Lee Roth band. But then like Steve Vai, he'd end up with like other bands, and he just like lost his way. He'd be doing like cornball stuff that was just like beneath him, frankly. And I think Dimebag Daryl was somewhat like that. He just wanted to kind of shred and do his thing, and he didn't really have a great sense of the overall package in terms of as long as he could do his thing, it's like he couldn't see the forest through the trees, perhaps. I don't know, but that would surprise me. But like I said, like when Phil is on point, his solo projects have been pretty dope. And Rex Brown's an interesting guy. Bass players always are, and they're always kind of the conscience of the band and the confessor of the band, but of whatever band we're talking about. But it's gonna come down to what I'm getting is that this may well be like very dope, but it's not gonna be Pantera, because like without the Avid brothers, you don't have Pantera. You got Phil Anselmo and Rex Brown and two other guys like playing Pantera songs, and that's fine, but it's not the same. Whether it's gonna be worthwhile or not is going to come down to like what two guys they retain. And Pantera also, in some of their later stuff, like Reinventing the Steel, it's heavy, but it's got like a mature sound. Like generally, I object to a lot of bands that do reunion tours. Like I don't want to see 70-year-old Axl Rose any more than I want to pick up a Playboy magazine and see like 80-year-old ladies, who posed, 60 years ago, or like when I see like obese Vince Neil, like embarrassing himself with like, decrepit Motley Crue, like who's paying to see this? It's like, would you pay to see like the 1965 like Denver Broncos like as elderly men like play a scrimmage game? Like I'm not being funny. Like why? Like who wants to see like obese like 70-year-old Vince Neil? Like why? Why would you want to see that? And there's got to be a maturity that comes to characterize your artistic endeavors as you age, like whatever your medium is. Like I make that point to people too. Like Elvis after the comeback tour, like the '68 comeback, he'd bust out Jailhouse Rock and stuff like that. And he'd bust out stuff like Blue Suede Shoes. The top off like an encore or something, but he didn't play rock and roll anymore because the dude was 40 years old. And you can't, even if Axl Rose like wasn't a slob, like there's something ridiculous about like a 60-year-old dude, like like trying to sell it a jam like It's So Easy or something. Like that's just not. It's unseemly, like and it's just stupid, and like it's not like rock and roll belongs to the youth, man, and like it's and I mean, there's exceptions to that, like Lemmy Kilmister, but he was like kind of doing his own thing, and he was also like a weird, ugly dude who was like, kind of like lived like the grimy, hard edged of rock and roll, and he really was like an itinerant, like gypsy rocker, like he was never like Joe Sex Symbol like Robert Plant or something. So I mean, there was no like embarrassment in him like getting older, and plus there's this whole like stage presence. Like I saw Motorhead a bunch of times, so I mean, and it's you can definitely be an old dude who's got rock and roll gravitas, but not in the way that like these 80s and 90s acts like were like not in the way that characterized them. So hopefully Phil Anselmo takes his cues from people like Lemmy and people like Elvis, and not from fucking Axl Rose.
Yeah,
like what are these? I'm telling you guys too. Like I'm 46 years old, and in a few weeks, and I put myself through some horrible freaking paces, man. Like when there's with in terms of like my physical health. And like, I'm not like a 300-pound fat ass who looks like you went through a sex change. Like, what these guys, they take us on roads. Like, what are they doing to themselves? And it's like the rich guys, like they could hire like they could hire a personal trainer, and I don't think any man should get liposuction, but if they wanted to, they could do that. It's like what do you do? What are these guys doing? Where they like turn into like they look like giant roosters with bitch tits or something? Like I don't like there's something like both bird-like and like and like feminine about them. Like and it's like what happens to these guys at like 50, man? Like it's not normal. But yeah, I'm sure that was somewhat of a ridiculous tangent, but I'm open-minded. I'm not going to shell out to go see Pantera, or the Pantera comeback. If somebody dropped a ticket on my lap and was like, "Hey, come with me," as long as it was a venue where I could like cloister myself or like hang out like away from the freaking madness, like I used to go see Priest when they'd hit Alpine Valley because Priest was one of the few bands I'll actually get out to go see. But also, if you've ever been to Alpine Valley, I know you haven't, Ace, but some of the fellas tuning in, I'm sure have. You can literally like hang out behind, like beyond like the band shell, but still get like you'll still be situated for the acoustic splendidly. But you're away from the crowd, and crowds like upset me. Like I get freaked out by them, and it's But I wouldn't I wouldn't shell out for a freaking reconstituted Pantera ticket or anything like that. But I am curious to see what they produce, and I'll be curious to hear what some of the fellows who do go see them, what their takes are.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things there. I recently got a comment saying, and this person's actually correct because it's very strange it coming from my perspective because obviously I wasn't around during the heyday of Pantera, so it's very easy for me to have 20/20 vision. And I understand older people don't like to hear advice from the younger crowd. I'm not looking forward to when Generation Alpha is telling me what to do. So I understand, to put it bluntly, obviously I'm in a very unique position here, but I've noticed a couple of patterns when news like this breaks, and I think the Elvis connection is very relevant because someone I was talking to somebody on Twitter who said that the 70s era Elvis, you're right, is not rock and roll, and when he plays Blue Suede Shoes or Chuck Berry songs on the Aloha Hawaii performance, you can tell it's very different. It's very much to a different audience, and people use the older audience as like as a way to debunk the authenticity of where Elvis is at in that stage of his career. But like you said, for Pantera, I feel like older people are kind of stuck in this conceptual framework where if Pantera goes on tour right now, what does that say about their legacy and what are the implications of this big picture stuff? And what some people are saying is it's just a tour and a concert. You can almost discard it from the Pantera history. And so I feel like a lot of older people, they're really emotionally invested into a band like that because they saw them in their prime. And I think my generation with the internet is discarding that legacy label, that big picture thinking. It doesn't have to be a part of this band that maybe we don't even call Pantera, but because it's somebody like Zakk Wylde, who's very close to Dime, as we know, I think it's not totally disrespectful in concept because I just don't see this as like something that has to be married to the musical legacy. You understand what I mean?
No, for sure. And it's people. Like I said, man, there's very few people who know how to age correctly. I mean, just in any endeavor, okay, or any kind of like walk of life, but musicians especially, like there's nothing to be you can age and you can be a rocker, man, but the way to do it is like like I said, like Lemmy Kilmister or Merle Allen. He's a very legit dude. He's a very weird dude, and I know like not everybody's hip to his jive, but but what he's doing is like very legit, and it's very much like an old guy thing, like he's not like pretending he's freaking it's 1980 and he's playing he's not pretending he's opening with Thrills for like Susie and the Banshees, but also I absolutely despise Kiss, like I've told you, but I actually am a big fan of Ace Frehley because he's dope, and Frehley his solo catalog is a very mixed bag, okay, but some of the stuff when he was kicking out jams with Anton Fig, and them guys, like the latter, like Fraley's Comet days. He put out some pretty dope stuff, and he wasn't trying to play like he wasn't just getting up there and trying to be, you know, the spaceman. He wasn't playing like a bunch of old Kiss covers and, you know, pretending he was 22 years old, you know, and it was 1975, you know, at Madison Square Garden, you know, but that's why he's cool. And it, you know, the plus, yeah, Pantera. I mean, to your point, also, man. Like, yeah, even though Pantera was they, I mean, they'd fly the Confederate flag a lot and stuff, but other than that, they weren't like you know, they weren't like nakedly political. But everything in those days was nakedly political, and like I don't, it doesn't like have a context anymore. Like the reason why, you know, I made the point before, even though I was like tight with a lot of skinheads, I was never I was never into that scene, and their politics were totally cool with me, but there was a lot of negative stuff about the scene, like that had nothing to do with the politics, and I was never a dude. I'm no pacifist, but I'm not a dude who likes to fight with people and shit. You know, you know, and I always liked, you know, I was never into that kind of like angry bullshit, you know, like meathead kind of fucking music. Okay, like Pantera was always a cut above that, but you know, because their musical chops were splendid. But Cowboys from Hell is a dope album, and I love Cowboys from Hell, and you know, it's a huge homage to Judas Priest, but it's its own thing, you know, and you know, but when Vulgar Display came out, like that album changed everything, and it's a dope album. It's incredibly heavy, and I like it, but it's just like not my thing, you know. But one of the reasons it so many guys love that album is because that that album really was that was like the angry like white working class returning to serve at around the time of the LA riots and Rodney King and you know, and all of that bullshit. You know, and when Piggy Bill Clinton was on the campaign trail telling us all to like repent and all that bullshit. Like it really was like a breath of fresh air. And and like MTV like had no choice but to play it because like it was a freaking, I mean, the album was like top on the charts, and that was like unheard of, man, for like a record like that. But you could tell like these faggots like Kurt Loder, they hated the fact they like had to play it. So I mean, it's like probably the closest thing, even though it's very different. So if you like wore a Vulgar Display, like a Pantera Vulgar Display shirt in '92, that was kind of like wearing a Ramones shirt in like late '70s. I know the Ramones became like a joke, but early on the Ramones, they were really weird, man, and they were a band that attracted like real violence, you know, like and it they were definitely like at odds with with what was with their peers, okay, or like their or with every other kind of scene that was active. I mean, so yeah. I mean, I can't see Pantera as like as a nostalgia act, and I mean that's you do have to you got to be careful about legacy, man. Like one of the things I know people like to bash Led Zeppelin, which I don't really understand. I was never a huge like Led Zepp fan, but I don't understand a lot of the grounds that people bash him on. And you know, Robert Plant got together with Jimmy Page in '94 just for like this Page and Plant kind of tour, and they played a bunch of like old blues songs and stuff. I mean, like it wasn't my thing, but it wasn't bad, okay. But when they asked Plant at the time, and he was you know, he was probably about my age then. He was like in his middle late 40s. You know, Plant's like I'm not gonna. He's like, you know, he's like legacy matters. I'm not gonna get up there with like my shirt off and pretend it's, you know, like like 1969. You know, like, and yeah, he's absolutely right. And it's also everything belongs at kind of its moment. Like I don't, you know, Pantera belongs to the world of 30 years ago in a very specific way. And I mean that not in like a bad way, like in the way like disco belonged to the 70s, or like new metal belonged to the early 90s or something, like in a legit way. But even if the Abbott brothers were still around, like I don't know, I don't think it'd be a great proposition, you know. And but yeah, we'll see. It plus two, you know, if Phil Anselmo, I respect him a lot in some ways, but then he'll like backpedal. And when he's talked about his addiction and like I mean, that's really that some people don't pay attention to because he really describes it accurately and like the hell of it and how it's just miserable and and he explained in very concise and very real terms like how before you know it like you're kind of like neck deep in it and he's a very he doesn't follow the cop out model of like, oh, this is a disease, like nor does he like try and play martyr like like Nikki Sixx. So I maintain literally pretended he had a heroin habit to make himself interesting, and like that is fucked up and like incredibly silly. But it's also Anselmo he had a tendency to speak get kind of loose lip, particularly when he'd been drinking, about racial matters and stuff, and that caused him and the band some problems. I mean, this caused problems 25 years ago. I'd imagine if he's gonna get raked over the coals pretty hard if he seems to be regressing to form in any way. And I'd really hate Phil Anselmo is kind of enduring like the last memory of him kind of in the public eye, him talking about like how he was wrong to like wear a rebel flag and like how he like that'd be really, really pathetic. I mean, I'd be surprised if that happened, but you never know. I don't know. But I was surprised to hear of it, particularly because Pantera still is like a very profitable catalog, and like the Abbott brothers are dead, and like neither Dimebag nor Vinny had kids. Like all the money from all the derivatives from that Pantera catalog are going to Phil and going to Rex, and that's a lot of freaking money, man. Like frankly, okay, I mean it is, and like it's not. It's not like Phil Anselmo, like he's not, where Gene Simmons was in 1995, where he like has got to do this because like, he's the money's all gone. I mean, apparently he wants to do it, and I mean, but hey, I think I think it'd be, I think if they ditched the Pantera branding, I mean, they're Phil and Rex and their band, which was Pantera. I mean, when Pantera existed, it had and has enough cachet that people recognize them like as individuals who they are. It wouldn't harm them if they rebranded because the Abbott brothers are gone. But I don't know. It depends on on who they get to back them up. If they I don't think I know they were floating the idea of Zakk Wylde as drafting Zakk Wylde for the tour. I'm not a huge fan of Zakk Wylde's playing style. I know a lot of people are. I mean, he's got chops all day. I mean, like nobody would say otherwise. But like his style he's way more Joe Satriani than like Dimebag Darrell. And I know that like his Black Label Society stuff, it's way more like kind of blues, like country influence kind of stuff. But he's still got all that kind of like whammy bar guitar wankery. Like that's really Dimebag Darrell was a unique player, and the way he'd harmonize in interesting ways with in between those kind of punishing riffs that characterize Pantera. But I mean, we'll see, man. Maybe I'll be wrong. I mean, maybe they'll put together some like freaking dope lineup. Who knows?
Yeah.
The real loss. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say what you said about context is very important because my generation specifically seems to have a lack of that. And so something like this is always very convenient for us to get to experience, especially after the heyday. But I was going to respond to one of like the fact that a band like Pantera became so mainstream, I think just speaks to the exception that is the 90s and the 20th century broadly. I mean, I tend to think that the more extreme music gets, it starts to lose some of that authenticity. And so I really don't think you can get more heavy than Pantera and still maintain a mainstream status. So for that to be like the one exceptional band to really make it to where like, I mean, there were even people like those, ragtag young group of kids on making it on Phil Donahue and stuff like that, talking about, this is why we like this really aggressive music. I think Pantera really, like you said, it's really speaking to that specific demographic at that point in time. And I just don't know exactly where those people are today. And it would be nice to kind of, we were talking about on the last show, how it's very sad that grunge kind of sucked in that would-be Pantera audience, because it's the same type of emotions we're talking about, that angsty, sick of it, youth, white culture of, the Seattle, living in poverty, with the exception of Eddie Vedder. But it's very sad today. Like, I don't know, like, there's a lot of that still around today. But does that audience seek out Pantera? Are those the types that show up at a Pantera concert, or is it, like you said, Kurt from the MTV days? Are those the people that kind of suck it up and turn it into this commodity, and it's just another one of those bands that goes out on tour and makes a decent amount of money? It just seems like it's a different context today, because
No, it is. And when they hit the road, I guarantee you, unlike some nostalgia acts, it's going to be a bunch of like old dudes like my age there. There's going to be some guys. There's going to be some dudes who are keen to music, like you are. It just got to take where they're like kind of on an anthropology mission, but it's going to be mostly like old dudes. And what I will say about this, what I will say is this. I saw Pantera 4 times. And the last time I saw Pantera was they opened for Black Sabbath on the Black Sabbath reunion tour in '98, and that was pretty dope. I like Black Sabbath a lot, and I wanted to see Sabbath, their original lineup, which was appropriate too. Because also Sabbath's its own thing, and they were guys who were like old before their time, like they were like young guys, so like it worked. But the Pantera crowd, like I said, they were rough. There'd always be a contingent of white power skins there. There'd always be like hardcore fans, like the kind of dude would show up to see like the Cro-Mags and stuff, and like Agnostic Front, and like Pantera was like the one metal band they liked, and then it was just but it was like a positive energy. I mean, there was always like fights and stuff, but at least at certain venues. But there was something very there's something very authentic about it, and something like very intense, and not negative, like a lot of what characterized the extreme music scene, particularly in those days. But but yeah, I think it'll basically be, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's gonna make real. I don't think it's gonna be real impactful, but I don't think it's gonna be like a flop either. It's gonna, it's gonna be like old dudes. And what I was gonna say a minute ago is I'll tell you, a band like a newer band. What I mean is like I didn't get into them until my later 20s. Like my mid 20s. I was a huge fan of Alexi Laiho and Children of Bodom. And like Alexi Laiho he was about the greatest of all time, man. Like I'd see COB. Last time I saw him, they opened for Iced Earth at the Metro. But Alexi, they played like a marathon set, and Alexi Laiho just like blow the roof off of. I mean, that must be like your pops. The way your pops described like Eddie Van Halen, at like in like Diver Down era, or like Fair Warning era. I mean, like that. Obviously, I was like a little kid then. I wasn't going to see Eddie Van Halen, but I imagine that it was comparable to like Alexi Laiho, like in the early 2000s. Like the dude was like a phenom. I was bummed out when he died. I mean, you could tell he was in bad shape even in like the early 2000s. He was just like this frail like dude, and you could tell he had like a habit. I mean, like booze was this thing, not dope, but it kills you just the same, and in some ways more cruelly. But Alexi would have been a good stand-in for Dimebag Darrell, and I think he's about the only guy I can think of. What they should do, frankly, and not just because they're not just as a kind of stunt to pander to like the true metalheads, but just because it'd be interesting, but also they'd probably get the best bang for their buck. They should look far and wide for some of these lesser known guitarists, man, who've got like freaking chops all day, and are hungry, and who got like a following, maybe like regionally or locally. But there's those are the guys I think could really, if they're hell bent on on continuing to brand as Pantera and and produce a package as close to the original as possible. Like that, like I said, I don't think they should be doing that, frankly. But if that's what they're gonna do, I mean that's probably the way you should go about it. One of the fellows on T-Gram, he was talking about Entombed the other day, which is a dope band. And I still got the cassette of Wolverine Blues, like floating around. I saw it like a few months ago when I was like literally cleaning out my closet. It and I can't remember the dude's name. The whole lineup for that album was like, it's weird. Sweden doesn't produce many death metal bands, like true death metal bands, but those that they did were like freaking dope. And the guitarist for Entombed, probably like one of the dudes in chat is like dropping his name now. Like my memory is like fucking shit for that kind of stuff. But that's not just me getting old like it always was. But I because it was on my mind, and I love that album. You know, like when I was like 19 years old, I had it on my playlist when I was typing away on the Steel Store manuscript, and the musicianship on that freaking record is incredible, and this was 2 decades before. This was a decade and a half before freaking Pro Tools. Like you couldn't hide behind you couldn't hide behind a wall of that kind of fakery, man. Like but I'd be that's what that'd be the best possible outcome in my opinion, is if, like I said, if Pantera kind of went down the path less traveled and poached some stud axe man and some rhythm section talent that is as of yet not particularly well known, but real hungry. But I mean, maybe we'll see, man. I might be wrong. But I thought of you like when I saw that news alert, and also I didn't see that coming. Like I scope out Phil Anselmo's YouTube now and again because, like I said, he's kind of a goofy guy. I mean, like all musicians are, but I always held him in more esteem than most of them guys. And when I was really struggling with my own fuck ups related to drugs and things. And Selmo, he really had, he really described these things in very legit terms, and I found that helpful. Not in some corny way, but it just sometimes have your own takes validated. Is lets you know that you're not like totally off base. And nobody really speaks honestly about things like addiction. So, but yeah, we'll see, man. Yeah, it may very well be it may very well be something that's actually pretty dope. I avoided taking in any of and of course, like, I mean, Guns N' Roses finally did their like freaking like reunion tour, and everyone went to see like 65-year-old like fat Axl Rose. I didn't watch any footage of that or anything like on purpose, because it's like this is just gonna be stupid and gay, but it the like we talked about. I mean, Pantera is a very different kind of band than GNR. There's going to be a very different demographic that goes to see the reconstituted Pantera, and they may do it right, man. And then some of his YouTube videos, he's not running around in a ball cap pretending he's like some freaking 21-year-old, like freaking hard ass, like hardcore guy. Like he seems comfortable in his skin as an old dude. If he brings that sensibility to the table, maybe it'll be dope. But I don't know. I'm kind of a tradition. Go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
So this is going to take the conversation on a hard right turn. So you may want to finish up that thought.
Oh no! By all means, jump in, man. I don't want to suck all the oxygen up out of the room. Please, go ahead.
Thomas, before we started, you and I were talking about sci-fi and talking about C.S. Lewis, and hearing you talk about aging and the stages of life kind of reminded me of one of my favorite Lewis quotes, right? And I'm not exactly a scholar on him, but he has this great quote from the last Narnia book where they're essentially like everyone's died, and in the context, it's kind of like in heaven. They're like, well, wait, okay, why is our sister not here? And he goes to like, oh, she kind of fell away from things, right? But what he says is that and this is the voice of God, right? Which he basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, he says, she's kind of fallen to the idea of the age that the point of life is to race on to the silliest point in your life and then stay there as hard as you can forever. And it's a great line because you kind of see it, right? And again, look, like, I'm not as much of a like a lifelong rock and roller as you guys are, but you see it a lot. And I remember the moment. There's a ton of moments, but one of the worst ones was that Mick Jagger and Dave Grohl released a 2020 COVID single together, and it's horrible. Like, it's one of the most embarrassing things. And one of my friends showed it to me. And look, I'm not the biggest Dave Grohl fan. I'm not the biggest Stones fan. But I saw it and I was just sitting there. I was like, oh, this is embarrassing for both of you. Like, just stop. Like Keith Richards, exactly. He's a desiccated corpse at this point. Like, just give it up, man.
Well, it's also, I mean, that's why I always held guys like Merle Allen, and I mean, like I said, I realize Merle Allen's a bizarre guy and he's kind of a sicko, but I relate to him on some basic level, like weird as that might sound, but it's also, I mean, the reason, aside from the fact that these fags like Mick Jagger and like Steven Tyler like don't know how to age and they're just like effeminate and pitiable, the whole reason why guys like me, at least I can't speak for anyone but myself, but in a lot of ways, I've been pretty lucky in life, despite my foibles and fuck ups. And I've had a pretty good man. But I never really like fit in anywhere, and rock and roll spoke to me because if you're like a weird guy who doesn't really fit in places, that it's a place where you can like excel, like on grounds of like what makes you strange. Whether you're like a shaman type or whether if you're a dude who's kind of like on the warpath with everything, including himself, like Phil Anselmo. There's different iterations of like the proverbial men who don't fit in, and like rock and roll kind of is how they kind of terms with the devil that they always seem to be wrestling with. And so when I see someone like Fag, like fucking Steven Tyler, or like Mick Jagger, like going around telling you to like get your COVID shot, there's something about it that's offensive on basic terms. It's kind of like guys like Jimmy Swagger like showing up in church and saying you should forgive them for like having midget hookers like pee in their mouth. It's not it's like they don't belong, and they never did belong, and they're doing violence to something that should not be so desecrated. I mean, it's that. Yeah, I mean, I probably read too much into this stuff because I like I said, I was related to rock and roll in peculiar ways. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and well, that's why, like I said, I was being serious, and I'm like, who the hell pays to see like obese 60-year-old Vince Neil like sing like Dr. Feelgood like through an auto-tune filter, like literally who's like paying to see this, like like why what's the allure? And I maintain, and it's weird, man. Like I was talking to like this lady who's a friend of mine. I mean she's really pretty, but I mean it's one of the reasons it's nice to hang out with her, but I'm not I'm not like misbehaving or trying to like draw her into it's a life of like debased ruin. But like we go for walks every Monday around Evanston and like and sometimes Skokie, like in Nixon Woods. But I mean, I was telling her, and I pick my words carefully because I mean it's different for women, and she's quite a bit younger than I am. But I'm like, you couldn't give me $1 million to be 22 years old again. like I wish I didn't. I wish I like felt good physically day to day because I don't at 46. But other than that, like my life now is like freaking awesome. You know, my life 25 years ago was not awesome, man. Like it was incredibly stressful, and frankly, it was quite frightening a lot of the time, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and you know, it I don't know how. I mean, like I said, I stipulate it's very different for females. I mean, women shouldn't fear aging either. You know, and there's plenty of fine looking ladies who are my age, you know, and even a little bit older. Not that that's, you know, particularly important, but I know that women got certain challenges as they age that men don't. But if you're a man, there's something really wrong with these dudes, man. Like, you know, who, like some 45-year-old dude is telling you that, like, life is shit if only they could, like, be in high school again. It's like, bro, who the fuck wants to be in high school? That's it. That's literally, like, the worst time of your life. You know, like, but that's the way these people think, man. Because, like, I mean, think about, I can't even imagine the lives these people live, you know, but that's the way they come at stuff. And you know, like being cool is like a dumb thing to freaking aspire to, but it, if you're okay in your own skin and you're okay with like being an old guy, like that is cool. You know, like that, like trying to pretend, you know, trying to recapture something you thought you had when you were like 20. Like that's not cool, man. And plus, like in terms of like finding your own style and within limits, okay, like stuff that's like fucking stupid and gay is like stupid and gay, but like within like reasonable limits, like when you're in your 40s, like you can like, you know, you can like find your own style and be eccentric and, you know, like do stuff that you be into stuff you like, and you know, it's not in a way that you can't when you're like 20. So like everything about it is just like better, man. And you know, even I'm certainly not any kind of ladies man. I mean, I've had a disastrous like track record with ladies. I mean, it's a short track record and it's very disastrous. I like women a lot, and I always make sure that I know a couple who will tolerate my company for hanging out, because I'm convinced if you don't hang around broads, you become like very weird. You know, like you do. I mean, it's especially if you're like an introvert like me. But you know, if I was looking, you know, I wouldn't get involved with a girl again unless I was looking to get married. But I mean, for the first time in my life, like if I was looking for a wife, I would not have like a hard time finding one. You know, and that was not the case like 20 years ago. And you know, if you're still, you know, if you're like an old dude, but you're still young enough that like, you know, you're like serviceable and like, you know, your brain basically works right, and like without being crude about it, like, you know, the rest of your equipment that needs to function like still functions okay. Like a lot of women will like want to kick it with you, man. You know, like and so that's, you know, that's what I tell guys too who like think everything's like going to shit as they age. It's like, actually, man, like, you know, as long as you don't like destroy yourself or ruin your life, like, you know, you whatever you want to do, like you can pretty much do within reason when you're like my age. Like I said, man, it's freaking dope. But that's, I don't know, but that maybe that's why like I don't get. Maybe that's why like I don't get turned on by like nostalgia acts and stuff. I mean, there's some I like the nostalgia that I go in for is like impersonal. Like there'll be like Cold War era stuff or like early '80s stuff that I recall vividly, um, from when I was a little kid, and like I gravitate to it because of the moment in historical time that it represented. Or there'll be stuff like from the very early '90s, you know, that's got like apocalyptic significance, and like I'll gravitate to that. Now, because it's like, oh, you know, I wish I was 17 again, you know, when I was like the hot rod king of some hillbilly high school and like molesting my cousin. Like I like pine for it because it's like, you know, wow, man, that was a really like remarkable moment in time. I wish I could almost be like an invisible time traveler and like go back and, you know, compare and contrast with, you know, the epoch that we exist in now. But you know, I don't know. I mean, that's also why and I'll bring it back to the topic here. That's also why That's also why I tell guys not, and it's toxic to think that everything is terrible anyway. But there's actually like there's a lot of things that are really really bad about this kind of like cyberpunk reality we live in today. But there's also like a lot of things that are dope, and there's like a lot of opportunity to be had. You know, whether it's making money in your own terms, like I've been able to do, thank God for that, or whether it's connecting with people who are like minded in political and sectarian terms, or whether it's increasing your knowledge base of spiritual matters, and being able to draw upon the resources, um, concrete and tangible as well as social, by the use of technology to facilitate that. I mean, these are pretty amazing times in a lot of ways. Bad as things are in other ways. And that's why I don't understand like how people become embittered, and particularly because in any sort of in any dissident faction or political movement, you're gonna find a lot of embittered, aggrieved guys. You just are. Um, and I first of all, I'm not the leader or the gatekeeper of anything, so it's not for me to tell people like they gotta like go pack, take their shit and go, because I don't like the fact that they're always embittered and angry. But that is like a toxic sensibility, and if people like that that kind of thing has a tendency to rub off. It's like a psychic, it's like a kind of psychic bacillus or something, and that's one of the reasons why I try when I realize people are here, like quite literally trying to insinuate themselves into our community, and into this our vanguard, for because they've got like some because they're just animated by this kind of like bigoted hostility to uh to X population. Like we don't need those people. Not because we're a bunch of pearl clutchers who like hate racism. It's but because people like that are fucking toxic, and they're not acting like men. They're acting like little bitches, but also they're kind of like dabbing like this poisonous uh psychic orientation off on others.
Well, it's and this is what I think a lot of the South African guys in our community get really right. Because there's a lot of doom posting.
They're amazing people. Afrikaners
yeah,
are.
they are. But you hear them talk, and it's like, well, okay, like they objectively are way worse off than we are, right? Like, look, like I don't know about Chicago, but you know, uh, it doesn't sound like there have been rolling blackouts for the last decade, right? Like things are at least working that well. And so, look, like I'm going to be the first one to admit that, like, look, like from a certain perspective, things are grim, right? But the idea that like things being grim is essentially like a sign for you to just like curl up into a ball, and just wait for the end. It's just like it's emasculating, and it's like on one hand, it's what you're saying, like, yeah, that this weird techno, like techno future kind of sucks, but it's also like there's kind of an adventure in it, like to make things right. And like a positive call towards making the world better is like fundamentally heroic.
Well, yeah, and it's also, speaking of South Africans, you want to know the way that a white man behaves? Like Clive Derby Lewis is one of my heroes, a real man and a great political soldier and just a great individual. And when he got locked up, he ended up he drew a life sentence for the murder of Chris Hani, the Communist Party honcho. And Derby Lewis is a middle-aged white man. He got locked in one of the worst joints in South Africa. And he was like running that, he's like 50-year-old, he's this 50-year-old Afrikaner who killed, this communist honcho, and he's on a tier with like a bunch of like young black dudes, who are all like heavy fucking G's, and like Derby Lewis ended up like literally like running that tier, and like these dudes like they basically like treated him like Kurtz, and like that's what I try to explain to people. Like people like bread mold are people anyway, like for all kinds of reasons. But there's like a sensibility. He's constantly like he's like one of these fucking people. He's like one of these like ladies who's like terrified of loud noises and African Americans. It's like if you like I'm not saying that Like, I'm not saying that there's not like really fucked up things that happen between our people and blacks, because there are, and no one needs to tell me about that, because believe me, I've seen more of it than they have. But it's like, if you carry yourself like the master caste, like black dudes respond to that and like treat you like the master caste. If you want to be a pussy and like be like bread mold and say like, the low IQ black man is frightening me. Like you're gonna get like a bitch. You get treated like a bitch. Like I'm not gonna run around like clutching like reams of IQ data, like rationalizing why like I'm afraid of the black man because I'm a huge pussy. Like and yeah, being a white man is not easy, because like it you tread the path of the master caste. There's things that attend that role in apocalyptic terms that do not if you're one of the ruled, as it were. Okay. I'm speaking in spiritual terms. I don't have delusions that like I rule over things. Okay. But I actually do. I'm just kidding. But
well, he
but it's
was
all
he
go
was
ahead.
he was talking about just recently about how like pop culture is kind of hard to win for the right, and in some ways like they can't win it. And so what would you say to something like that, especially with like how you have talked about how you've seen the Overton window shift in real time, you've seen, you know obscure things become mainstream. So like for somebody who insists that the trajectory we on is not doing so well and the culture is doomed from the start, how would you respond to that kind of a mindset that you hear from academics, from people that work in those spaces?
I mean, the way to look at pop culture is like this. I'm actually not a big Sam Francis guy, because I'm just not. I respected him, and I think he had some important insights, especially vis-a-vis the Cold War, in its epoch. But one of the things he did have insight about was that the popular culture is kind of like it's kind of like a metronome, metaphorically. Okay, like you kind of discern like you discern like zeitgeist, like in its basic features, and in a managerial state, a truly managerial regime, in the sense Burnham described it, you get a sense of like what constitutes that conceptual space, in large part, is what the managerial regime and the kind of the bureaucracies, all and sundry, that constitute it, are attempting to insinuate sort of into public spaces. And some of it is succeeding and some of it's failing. you know um and when you discern, like, as started to be the case really well before Trump, but this really started happening in earnest around 07, 08, 09. But it became clear, like, people just like weren't they were rejecting they were rejecting the ideological strictures that make up the state religion, quite literally, like both in terms of political theology as well as like the actual like moral theology. Now, again, I don't accept, like, I don't accept Francis's paradigm of revolution from the middle, and I'm always making the point that the proverbial like man in the street, the kind of marginally or not, they're the kind of like non-marginal, like civically engaged in some way, guy who pays taxes, like votes regularly, consumes infotainment. Like, obviously that man is not he's not discerning political realities as they actually are in any kind of meaningful way. Okay. But when his conceptual horizon begins to shift away from what is attempting to be insinuated into conceptual space by the regime, that means what the regime is doing is failing. Okay. So that's kind of the key takeaway from what public habits and tastes are at any given moment, and whether they're basically abiding what's being presented to them, or whether they're rejecting it, either out of just a kind of nihilistic disengagement, or out of an aggressive hostility. Like, that's the key takeaway, I think. I mean, it's a complicated topic, and sociology at scale, particularly in particularly in a polity of 300 million people and counting, there's something the equivalent of the law of large numbers. Okay, there's like phenomena emerge that from which you can derive data that you would not from smaller aggregate numbers of people. Okay, I'm not like trying to derive some clever metaphor. Like that really is true. Okay, so when the conceptual paradigm shifts, among the kind of dispossessed majority, as it were, that's why it's significant. And it's also too. I mean, I want to hold off getting too deep into this because Jack and I are going to take it up in a couple of days. But I at base, like, I am a Hegelian, so like process properties and processes of mind are that's the prime mouvant of historical occurrences. Okay, so what there really is a spirit of the age in any given epoch, and when that loses its context, even if it no longer resonates, even if the people who reject it don't have some developed understanding of why they're rejecting it, or why why it doesn't have a context anymore, like, that's not important. Okay, it's just instinctively it no longer it no longer it no longer syncs up, with the dialectical process that is underway, and that every man and woman, however incompletely, or however in whatever simple-minded way is engaged with it. They when it gets to the point that they recognize that this is not syncing up with reality, they you can tell that there's a paradigm shift underway. And part of I'm I I'm not explaining this well because I'm tired, so forgive me. But what people instinctively perceive, there really is something to that. Okay, and that's kind of something that's missing from the sociology. Used to be a real discipline, and that's why I invoke C. Wright Mills a lot, as you might have noticed. And Christopher Lasch, Lasch is kind of a strange case, and he became he was like this kind of Freudo-Marxian who rejected all that completely at the end of his life, and started writing polemic that was really, really insightful and cutting. But he kind of became more of a man of letters than a sociologist. But real sociology, it was a real discipline. It was very serious. It had tremendous significance in applied as well as theoretical terms during the Cold War for obvious reasons. And what in symbolic psychological terms, and in terms of values, and in terms of what in terms of the characteristics of what narrative people will accept, and conversely that which they won't. This tells you a lot about what is underway. And it doesn't matter that, again, like some decent but not particularly intelligent guy who, like, drives like a laundromat truck for a living. It doesn't matter that he can't articulate why. What matters is that he perceives it, and that's a very real thing, and it's not just mass psychology or the madness of crowds or whatever at all. First of all, it's an entirely punitive way to cast humanity, and one shouldn't look at man as a potential saint, but nor should he be looked at collectively and propositionally as just like a totally depraved animal. I mean, that's equally fucked up. But there's too much intellectual elitism. This probably sounds funny coming from me because I'm so focused on abstract topics. There's too much intellectual elitism in our thing. Not like in our like Vanguard faction here, but I mean generally. Like, I'm not saying you should like invite people over who are stupid and like listen to them say stupid things. What I mean is that there's plenty of guys who maybe don't have some great grasp of theoretical topics, and and aren't blessed with like powerful minds, but they're nonetheless their instincts are sound, and there's things you can learn from them. I'm gonna raise up in a minute, man. Forgive me for abruptly raising up, but I'm getting freaking tired.
Yeah, you got some questions here that we can
Yeah,
go
let's
through.
field them.
I just wanted to speak on what you just said. I think the mindset coming from the scholars is people are wondering, because there's so much political power waged against us, the elites have the upper hand. And so if you're serious about dissident topics becoming mainstream, then there has to be a strategy oriented movement behind that, not the thing that you're suggesting, which is kind of a different take on it. So that's one of those things where I think it's a lot of clashing of opinions, but it's all rooted in elite theory. So
No,
it's
you're
already kind
right.
of
Yeah.
complicated from
No,
the
you've
get
got a
go.
good grasp of sociology. I mean, you're a very smart guy, but that goes without saying. But yeah, you spend time with sociology and you take it seriously. I mean, that's one of the things we first started. When we first started talking about these topics, like right around the time you and I connected up. I mean, that was one of the reasons why we had such productive conversations. And that made me very happy that to run across young dudes who aren't just looking at stuff like C. Wright Mills and saying like, oh, that's garbage, that's unscientific, or
This
like
guy's
it's
a
just
Mark. This guy's a
yeah,
Marxist. So
yeah. Because I mean that stuff is important. I mean, and just like I said, like the methodology stuff is important. I mean, even if you don't agree with the conclusions of these people, yeah. What are people asking or
yeah.
saying?
And that's the utility of Burnham too. But yeah, you're
Oh
right.
yeah.
You're right. So this first question, this guy, if he's still here, he was the first guy in the chat, asking you about the Civil War, and because of course you and Pete have been going on about World War II. But if you were to dedicate that same amount of energy as a son of the South, and people could use some educating on the War of Northern Aggression, yeah, since that's basically been reserved to Thomas DiLorenzo amongst another short list of people. But yeah, what are your thoughts on
I did a
dedicating?
War Between the States episode with
Is it Oros?
Yeah, with Oros.
with Oro, who's a great guy. And I mainly was talking about the Emancipation Proclamation and the kind of origins of the intractable hostility between the Southern fire eaters and the Northern radicals. And I mean, that's an important point, and the extremism of people like John Brown can't be overstated. And plus, that's when media really developed a kind of national reach and the capacity to radicalize susceptible populations. I'm 20th century is my kind of wheelhouse. I mean, I know a lot about the war between the states, and I know a lot about the 19th century, but I generally focus on the 20th century because Second World War and Cold War and subsequent is kind of my forte. And as I indicated when we first went live, the manuscript I'm drafting next, because Steelstorm 2 is done, is my book on international jurisprudence in 1648, and specifically the Nuremberg system. So I just spent a lot of time with that topic. It's like a feedback loop, okay? Like that's kind of what I've always been fascinated by. So it's kind of my a primary research interest area, which leads to me producing long form about it, which means that then like I deep dive even further into it, and then that means okay, so because I developed this greater knowledge base, now I'm gonna produce more long form related to it. I would totally be that said, I would totally be down if somebody wanted to do a series in the war between the states. Pete has been very good to me. He's a great guy and a great friend of ours. Okay, and before I know him quite well now, and we're great friends. But I did not know him at all when he reached out to me. So he took a chance in associating his brand with mine, and availing to me this great, kind of platform to reach a lot of people I would not have. and just for posterity's sake, I feel like I'm doing God's work. Not because like I'm so awesome, but because I believe in my own little way. I'm contributing to rectifying the historical record and clarifying historical memory and striking a blow for our people and for historical truth. But I don't. I admonish people to talk to Pete. If you want, like some guy the other day, he said he wanted me to talk about Operation Sea Lion, which is important. That was the feigned mobilization to prepare for an amphibious assault in the United Kingdom by the German Reich. I believe this was a strategic ruse. Okay, and I've got a lot of evidence I can produce to substantiate that claim. So like I told this guy, I would love to discuss that in a dedicated pod, but you got to talk to Pete, and I'm sure Pete would take any suggestion that I made in good faith, and I would not make a suggestion to Pete not in good faith. But I don't want him to feel like I'm trying to take control of his platforms. He's given me a lot of leeway in the World War II series, which is great. But I don't want to overstep any boundaries. However, he's always Pete's got a lot of respect for his listeners and subscribers, and he's constantly soliciting feedback, especially on what the subscribers want to hear about. So whatever you want me to emphasize or to take up with Pete, approach him directly, which gives me this is a good opportunity. I've been hinting at for a minute that I want to establish a YouTube presence. I quite literally want to launch Thomas TV, like David Lee Roth in the Just a Gigolo video. We had Dave TV. I want Thomas TV. Like, I'm not kidding. And I've talked to a lot of people, including Ace and our dear friend Jack here, as well as El Nino, as well as some of the other fellas, and they were and are enthusiastic at the prospect of contributing content of their own. That's freaking awesome. Exactly. They've been very enthusiastic at the prospect, contributing their own content to the dedicated channel that I want to establish. Okay, so it'll be a mix of like my stuff. After 30 days, the Mind Phaser episodes. I'll remove them from behind the paywall, post them up here. I'll the series I'm doing with Pete Canones, it'll be there in its entirety. Like some of the live streams we do, I'll host my own live streams there. Just like all kinds of great shit. But what I need is, I don't know anything about the production side of these things. Okay, I need somebody to help me with the optics. I need to do like all the sexy like intro stuff, like nothing too crazy, but I want it to look professional and not like freaking hobo level stuff, and like bumpers and things like that. And I mean, all the stuff that goes into the rudimentary kind of optics of a YouTube channel. Okay, so I need your help. I mean, speaking to the people like watching and listening now, I need your help to make Thomas TV come into existence. And obviously anybody who donates their time and expertise, like, I will pay you for your time and expertise. I'm not asking for charitable like work here, but that would be dope. Like, hit me up directly. I'm not hard to find. Hit me up on Tgram or hit up Ace, or just make it known that you want to help. And I as early as next week, I'd really like to get the ball rolling, if that's possible. My top priority, I mean, in an ongoing capacity, I'm working on this Nuremberg international law text. But other than that, I want to focus on the launch of the YouTube the YouTube channel. And I think we need a presence. It makes sense, and I think it makes that's what we should be pursuing in terms of growth. And it's the right kind of growth. It's not growth for its own sake. It's the way it'll deliver a lot of content to the people who are with us, and allow them a way to participate, like we're doing right now, and the worthy minority who we have not reached yet. That'll help them to find us. Plus, it'll just be fun. This is a serious endeavor. I mean, it's there's nothing really more serious than real politics. I don't think I need to convince anybody of that. But also, there's nothing wrong like having fun, and I I think among other things, the YouTube channel will be fun. But again, I'm feeling pretty faded. So yeah, but thanks again, man.
Yeah.
I hope I hope I hope everybody got something out of our commentary tonight. And Jack and I assume you don't mind me announcing, Jack, that you and I are gonna record some stuff later this week.
Yeah. So Thomas and I have something coming out tomorrow. If I can plug a little bit, I also have an episode with chat member Saddam Hussein, which actually
awesome.
is a pretty fun conversation. We talk a lot about growing up in the South and kind of growing up in the the charismatic evangelical movement, which is
No, that's dope.
Which is fun.
No, but yeah, that's great, man. So definitely, Jack is a dear friend of ours. But he also produces great content. So please support him. And yeah, he and I are gonna record some. We're gonna take up. We're gonna hold. He's gonna host me in a discussion about Hegelian theory. I think people will get a lot out of it. But all right, fellas. Again, I can't thank you enough. And let's do this again, maybe over the weekend. If you're amenable to that.
No problem. Thank you, Thomas. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise,
man. Talk to you, man.
All right. Well, been meaning to get Thomas's take on the mold bug article. Obviously, he is notoriously not charitable towards Mr. Yarvin, but since that was something that was buzzing on our side of Twitter, thought that would be appropriate in the middle of the Pantera 90s heavy metal discussion to get into the Hegelian psychology of
I think the conversation about moldbug really neatly terminates our conversation on washed up celebrities who don't know when to bring their careers to an end.
Very interesting. Didn't even see that angle. Yeah, that's
It's funny because I've been going back through a lot of the like Moldbug's greatest hits, and there's still like really good stuff in there. Like How Dawkins Got Pwned is a stupid name for a book, but it's actually pretty decent, and talking about viewing whatever you want to say, like progressivism as a mind virus, I think is actually pretty helpful. And he brings up, and this is not a unique idea to Moldbug, but it's something that Thomas and I have talked a lot about, which is that like you can't ever really be an atheist. You're kind of an atheist in relation to something. So it's frustrating to me because there's good stuff in Yarvin, but he's just so insufferable. And I say this even as someone like reading his old work, I'm even just like, I want to give you a wedgie, and his new stuff, I can't even read it anymore.
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on there. I can't quite describe it on youtube.com, but we're joined in by another winner, American Populist. What's going on, big guy?
Oh, what's up? It's going pretty good.
You actually kind of got us the ball rolling on this topic because back on your show, I believe on Wednesday, which was your birthday, you mentioned the Yarvin article, and we didn't exactly give it an academic take, but that kind of got me in that mindset because I honestly forgot like the next day it even dropped. It made that much of an impact on the intellectual side of things. So very funny that was, still getting shared around. But here, Vingel in the chat is telling me to share this link. I'm a little worried here. Vingel, he's a square guy, but when he's just randomly putting links in the chat. Can I how do I share this without?
Vingel's helping me out. That's just a link to my channel. I clicked on it
Okay.
expecting something
Okay.
horrendous.
I
It
thought
is
we were
something
getting
horrendous. It's my content.
I was just a little worried when people are just putting hyperlinks in the chat if we're gonna break the terms of service due to what have yous from people trolling in the chat. But yo, Pouch Respect, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate I appreciate it. There was some questions in here. I'm sorry, whoever that was, we did not get Thomas's take on the Lulu album. You know, maybe that's for the better. Didn't want to kill the mood, as you know. So maybe it's best if we just save that one for a later time. Save that one in a non-Hegelian stream. We need to be in the right state of mind, because that can really cause a wedge between two people. Let me see here. You guys, by the way, thank you guys for tuning in. This was one of the highest watched shows we've had on the channel, and I think because the last one was taken down for some reason, I think this is now the new record. So I appreciate you guys. Of course, the Thomas mob, the 777 crew, is out gallivanting on a Monday evening, East Coast time, maybe afternoon if it's West Coast. So it's nice to see you guys after a long day of waging. You can wage war in the chat. So very thankful for you guys, and we got some regulars for sure. So also thought about throwing this in there. Kind of didn't fit. Maybe it did, but Jay, since you're in here, I guess we can run it by you. I've already run it by Populous, but look. Hear me out, okay? Because I was in a group chat on Instagram, and I was sort of alarmed by the fact that I was talking about women's fashion, as you do, as we all do, and I was pretty taken aback by the cross between the business suit and the skirts that women wear in the office. It was kind of like the beginning of androgyny in the workspace. I don't know if this is like a mainstream topic, how many people think of it in those terms. But do you kind of see that as kind of the beginning of subversion, and when we're talking about business attire?
I don't, because if you look at it, it's actually, as far as I'm concerned, right? Like androgyny has always been something that's kind of I guess plagued, particularly decadent societies. But you actually also see it even before that in like communist work uniforms. Like they were kind of deliberately so non-gendered. That's probably a better way to say that. But so I think that there is something to be said for the fact of breaking down people's individuality and essentially forcing them and breaking down the barriers between the sexes to kind of conform them into a worker bee type setting. But yeah, actually, rare bit in the chat, Rosie the Riveter and coveralls. Yeah, that's a little bit after it, but it's actually, this is what you see kind of referenced in Orwell. When he's talking about what all the party members wear, and they're kind of these gray horrible jumpsuits that everyone wears. Like North Korea is a good example, right? Like you see them all wearing their party uniforms; they're all the same. But I agree with you that it's not a good thing, right? But I do think that it was something that was definitely before, I guess, at least in the West, women entering the workplace en masse.
Well, it's a very devastating thing of, nuclear proportions, because we endorse American Psycho on the show, and we kind of like the Wall Street, cutthroat businessman looks, suspenders on a man. So, like I was saying, this is putting me in a state of conflict because, I like to endorse the 80s. There's a lot of fashion, the denim and leather, the Aquanet. It's all good stuff. But if we're going to throw in the kind of preppy, rich girl, valley girl, if we're going to have to cut her loose and kick her out of the movement, I'd be willing to do that. I don't know if that's the right move. I don't know if that's a personal preference. But again, if we're talking about what is more acceptable, the other controversial part of this is I think the goth girls are somewhat more covered up than these business skirt wearing, working class Sigourney Weaver types. I think the goth girls got an edge above them, even though they've kind of been co-opted by LGBT. there is something weird about how somehow these broads wearing studs, wearing piercings, somehow closer to the truth than the ones working in the office. I don't know.
So,
These are just loose ideas. I want to run it by you guys.
no, that's fair. I'm probably, and this might be borderline heretical on the internet generally. And you know what? Actually, here's what I'll do. I'm gonna say this and then leave because I got to go anyway. So I don't want to see. I don't want to see this.
Perfect strategy.
All right, I'll lean into the mic. Goth girls, not that hot.
Wow, that's a hot take there.
He actually said it. That's brutal, man. Because again, I know you caught one of these beauties in real time. Listen, I think there's a very big difference. Don't get me wrong. Everyone in the audience, I don't want them to be gaslit by that blasphemy that Jay left us with. We're talking about two different demographics, although there's overlap, although, you know, it's very confused. It's a little thing called nuance. Okay, it's a very nuanced take. We're going to have a whole school of thought around this, the fashion trends of women. But it's very different to be a goth girl in 2002 when Avril Lavigne releases Let Go than to be a goth girl in the post 2010s modernity. It's a very different thing. And so I'm calling out Jay Burden on the show to return anytime to address what exactly is he talking about. Are we talking about, you know, the original goths? Or are we talking about this caricature that they've been reduced to, you know, sort of the post tomboy genocide? This is we're going post Holocaust mode when we're talking about the goth demographic. That's what has to be addressed. And so to throw off this, you know, this general statement shot across the bow by Mr. Burden, I find that rude. I think it's coming from a place of ignorance. And I just, frankly, the guy just doesn't know what he's talking about, because we're going to have to really narrow this down in a very concrete way. So I strong disagree. I'm going to speak for American populace. Strong disagreement on this question here. I don't think you can just, you know, throw out the baby with the bathwater in that regard. I just think that that's very flimsy. You know, we like to be intellectual on the show. There is nothing impressive about saying stuff like that. It's very childish. If we could time all our mods in chat, if we could time out Jay Burden, because the guy is like Rasputin. He's just out there totally unhinged, and I don't want him to radicalize the hoes. They're out there in the chat listening to this garbage, and so I really
he's
want
like the arbiter when he fails to protect the Halo ring, so he's branded as a traitor to the movement.
Yeah,
to the religion, you know. He's committed blasphemy.
Yeah, very nasty guy, very nefarious, Mr. Burden. That's rough. That's rough to leave with the audience, just in a state of confusion, you know. But yeah, that's very, very, very disappointing when people reveal who they are on the show. Tough times, you know.
I will say though, the difference you mentioned is very big, because I do remember pre-2010 goth rolls.
Thank you.
And it was a lot better, along with a lot of women's fashion. It was just a lot better, a lot less degenerate. But as things just progress, they progress in the wrong direction, and so it just gets worse. You know?
Right, and you know, of course, we have to go back to Elvis, but it really is like saying that Elvis is this counterculture figure. It's just a misreading of history, and it totally represents the whole idea, because when we're talking about goth girls, we're not really talking about the degeneracy aspect. We're talking about a very specific thing. And I don't think people get that. They see the sort of androgynous, they see these like boyish features on a woman, and they say that this is a different thing. I think it's in the same category as like David Bowie. You know, we don't endorse the full package, but I just think it's a complete misreading. What you're really attracted to when you're talking about goth girls, it's not the male aspect. That's sort of a different thing. You know, if there's any gym cells in chat, this kind of overlaps with you guys, and I'm sure there's a lot of you in there. You know, when you start to work out, I'm not speaking from experience, of course, but when you start to work out and then you start checking out women, you can't really look at them the same way again. It's sort of like being possessed by The Shining. you start to see sort of the flaws in the clay of female anatomy. You start to notice what could be better, what could improve. And you start to look at women in this very different way, not in a gay way, not in a homosexual way. I'm talking about you start to look at anatomy through a different context, through a different lens. And so that's where I think gym cells bring some insight to the table, not defending it or, condemning it. Again, maybe when I become a gym cell at some point during this decade, I can sort of have a more well-rounded view on it. But I'm not totally against them having their own thing. I think it's very productive, and people can really learn a lot when they bring that stuff into the fold. So that's the whole thing with the goth girls. People who don't get it, listen, this is a Zoomer thing. I imagine the people who don't get it are checks notes, millennials, older, maybe worse, perhaps. So listen, this is our thing. This is our CBGBs. If you're confused why you walk in the door and you see Debbie Harry, but you also see Joan Jett, don't be alarmed. It's a hodgepodge. We do a little coalition building. I think Rothbard would be in high spirits if he saw us talking about this stuff online. So that's where that stuff is coming from. We're not endorsing the degeneracy. Honestly, we're going to have to go after the piercings too. I don't think that has to be part of the look. If we could just, scrub that, whitewash that from their history, that would be great. But I think that, we have
piercings
to be
need to be banned just for everyone in
Yeah.
general. It should be abolished.
It's a different thing. So, we like to pick and choose and have a level-headed perspective on the whole thing. So that's the thing. I understand we're talking about a lot of controversial stuff on the show. That's why it's uncensored. You go on the Tim Pool podcast or I don't even know what some of these other ones are. Jack Posobiec, Jack Murphy. I don't know. You listen to some of these other guys, they won't address this. Alex Kashuda would never address the goth question. It's too subversive. That's what it is. So we like to get a little crass on the show and talk about what really matters, which is what are we going to do about all these Valley girls, So that's the thing. Very, very troubling stuff. Okay. Let's be careful in the chat here. Real goths from the 1980s. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Okay, I don't want to see all these older guys that are like you guys and your Hot Topics. Spencer's the clothing store, just a preference. You guys had the original 70s goths, very late 70s, early 80s. So I don't want to hear about how this is weird. You don't get it. Yes, you do get it. You saw these broads at your high school. So I don't want to hear any browbeating from your ivory towers looking down on the Zoomers. Totally out of line. If anything, you guys had it worse. You guys were doing the hairdos up to the ceiling. So you guys were a lot more extreme than some of us in the early 2000s. So just want to remind everybody, think about who's giving you this advice. People that went to Baja concerts, people that went to, Susie and the Banshees shows. They're going to look down at us. It wasn't us wearing swastikas on stage, okay? Let's just get that out there. You guys were the ones really pushing the edge in terms of fashion, wearing those pants in the UK that you can't even walk in. So I don't want to hear it from these old dogs. Talk about old heads.
But it's so funny too. These Gen Xers, their generation is just going to be remembered mainly for Beto O'Rourke, because there's their guy. As sad as that is to say, it's going to be the only Gen X politician ever to exist.
Yeah,
it's a sad legacy.
It's really rough for those guys, and they got no drip. That's the thing. These guys, they're out there in public wearing the first thing that comes to their mind. You got to have a little bit of psychology behind it. You got to have like a Audrey Hepburn mindset when you're looking at the closet. And I just feel like these older guys, they just got no taste. We're gonna have to get Mr. D on the show to really set these guys straight. They don't have that panache. That je ne sais quoi. That what have you. They really need it because they're lacking. How is it different? I'll tell you why it's different. Do we have another hour to go on the show, American Populace? Or are you is your time schedule free?
I'm
we can
free.
get
Let's
into
go
this.
into it. I'm free to
Okay,
go into it.
here's the problem, guys. Here's the problem. When we're talking about these modern Goths, okay, first of all, I even hesitate to call them that. Thomas was skeptical to even call this Pantera reunion Pantera. I'm in a similar mindset when we're talking about these Goths, because that's the thing. The early 2000s Goths, they were wholesome, they were trad, they were covering up. They weren't in it for these degenerate purposes. If anything, that's what these modern ones, this modern manifestation, that's what it's become. It's become like a gay thing. It's become this like homosexual biker club meetup. But instead of showing up to listen to like Rob Halford or other people wearing leather and, you know, singing real rock and roll, these guys show up. It's like a costume for them. Okay. They come in and it's like a contest to see who can look the craziest, who can upset their parents the most. That's not what Elvis sought out to do. That's not what the bikers were trying to pull off. They were trying to do a cool look. The cool look was the entry, and then you had some substance. But these broads that are, you know, wearing piercings and they're on TikTok, we would never associate with these people. We would, frankly, we would walk away. We wouldn't even want to be goth at that point. So I think a lot of women, you know, sad to say, because a lot of Zoomers, like academic agents said, they don't have a cultural memory. So they don't even have enough references to like push back against this stuff. They see it as all one big thing. But if you're somebody like Thomas who saw the original Goths with Susie Sue, and you kind of see this later manifestation in the 2000s, you're able to see, you know, this thing that we got here. We're Sisters of Mercy fans. You know, we listen to all kinds of different music. And I feel like these goth girls today, they just kind of go with whatever's popular, whatever's on TikTok, whatever's trendy. And they would never have this wide range of music. They would walk into CBGBs and they would be sort of captivated by the way people look. They're not exactly listening. They're on their phone the whole time during the concert. And us Avril Lavigne heads, us, you know, anti-Britney stans, we wouldn't put up with that kind of stuff. You know, we would be totally, you know, all ears in every facet of the goth aesthetic. Whereas these people today, they're just they're in it because they don't have a good family structure, children of divorce, don't have a good, you know, well-rounded view of the world. That's the other thing too about the original goths. I would really, really encourage people to look into the stats on this. Let's look at how good the family lives were of someone like Avril Lavigne. I know that she kind of talks about that in interviews, but you look at some of the early goths, not too far off from the historic American nation. You know, you would expect to have the kind of parents that Elvis had. They sort of let him have this kind of go-getter attitude, this boogie-woogie stuff, and it wouldn't corrupt their roots back at home. They would be, you know, good kids. They wouldn't be these edgy people that you would be afraid to hang out with at school. These were normal people that would wear, you know, black eyeliner. It was a completely different type of person. And the personality you have today are these homosexuals, women, people who don't have people have high time preference. And so those are not the people we're speaking to. You know, we need Ed Dutton to really do a full video on this, because it's one of those topics that gets neglected. People just like the Zoomers, they put them into one category and they say this defines the whole legacy. Nuh-uh. Maybe we were all watching the same TV shows, but we did not associate, you know, there wasn't this like Glee influence over our culture. We were in it for hard rock purposes. We loved the skaters, we liked the surfers if you were on the West Coast. So that's the difference. These, you want to know the real difference between the goths of the early 2000s and now? We were somewheres, and the ones today are anywheres. These people can exist. These people can be grown in a petri dish at a think tank, as Sean Hannity said. The people that back in the past, you know, we're talking about a very cool suburban atmosphere that had a lot of creativity. This is Valley Girls done correctly. Okay. This is your Alicia Silverstones with a nice wide range of influence. This is your Christian Slaters that got a whole cassette tape in their rooms. So that is the difference. Okay. These women that just want to offend everybody and they want to post, they want to do like political topics. We would never get political in the early 2000s. We weren't interested. Okay. We were at war and we didn't even know it was happening. Okay. Because we were stuck at the mall.
Well, we didn't know because we still had good entertainment back then. The propaganda just wasn't obvious. They were, exactly, as we said before, I think with the Adventure Time pill, honestly, that's where the subversion really started, honestly. And that's when they suddenly let the mask flip a little bit. Before that, they hid it very well, and it was open and obvious, except to the people like us now who could see through it now, probably. But
Exactly. No,
you still had
exactly.
good quality stuff back then. Now you just have garbage, so you can't even push propaganda because it's garbage now, so nobody watches it.
No, exactly. And another great example is what Bass Guitarist just said. There's a lot of people that masquerade as glam. You know, there's some bands, I don't know if I want to put them in this category, but there's bands like Santa Cruz. There's people out there that are trying to bring back crazy licks. There's people out there that are trying so hard, and that's the whole problem. You're not supposed to try. You're just supposed to organically write, you know, riffs that you can find on Bass Guitarist's Telegram, which, by the way, please check that out because the guy is a genius. But, you know, there's a lot of people today that think that what it means to be glam is you just have this look. You have your hair up the way that they did back then. And what it is a sound. A lot of people don't understand this. A lot of people in metal don't understand this, you know, and that's where Eddie Trunk tries to push back against. That's why he didn't like the hair metal label because he thought it was too narrow of a definition. But, you know, glam, if you listen to Doc and Rats, you know, these guys were, you know, giving thrash bands a run for their money. They were impressing a lot of the people that were further to the right than them, musically speaking. And so that's why, you know, glam metal is not just this fashion statement. If you don't have the chops, you are not glam. And sort of the new manifestation of that today, which is going to happen very soon, is Chad metal. We're going to sort of bring a very, we'll get Pouch Respector to chime in on this. We'll have him help us with the definition, but people who understand it, the psychology of it, they need to understand that it's more than just a look, because a lot of people just reduce it to that Cinderella, Poison, Warrant. That's too bad. They called them the W bands. That's how cynical they were. D. Snyder, what are you doing, big guy? There's a lot more depth to it, and maybe some chat would fight me on that too, because I know that that's a bit of a controversial take. They're kind of the ugly stepchild of the metal family tree. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's a lot of good people in there. So, whoa! Getting a live update live on air. Ed Dutton has a Goth GF. Is that real? Do we have receipts on that?
I don't know. I couldn't verify.
All right, we're gonna have to frogs in the chat. We're gonna have to verify that because I don't just want to push lies out on the air here. I mean, I'll put it on the screen because it is Keck. But I'm going to need you to, you know, have your receipts ready because I don't just want to push anything on here. But the hair, okay, yeah. Yeah, there you go. There was.
No, it's so true, but it's a look versus a lifestyle. All these people just use it as a LARP. It's kind of like the people who buy Patagonia and all these other clothing brands, which I found this out a couple of weeks ago, but actually the guys who originally created were these environmentalists, and they created, you know, to stop the environmental change. And so, but they realized that the left at that time was degenerating to the point where they were just buying it as a LARP. They didn't actually believe it. They didn't believe in the message the clothing brand was originally founded upon, like Patagonia. And they were just really angry about it. And so that's why they, like, one of them stopped selling it because you're just mad these people didn't actually believe in the message, you know. That's
right, and that's
the thing I found out.
No, that's great because that's why I mentioned Ralph Lauren earlier, because I mean, maybe this is like the political pill, if anything, for these girls, but you got to understand this fashion industry, it's a business. So of course, when they're pushing the latest trends, they're not doing it through their own free will. You know, there's an agenda behind that. And so when you have people trying to, that's why I push back so heavily against the business skirts. You know, that's not just a random idea that, you know, skidded across some executive's mind. There's an angle there. And so that's why we have to be careful which fashion statements we endorse. I know the girls just kind of swallow everything up, you know, kind of
well, it's kind of like
willy-nilly.
yoga pants, honestly, which just appeared out of nowhere. And like, there's definitely subversive things about that, which are just very obvious.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously an ulterior motive there, and so I don't understand why you say that and people think you're a conspiracy theorist because you think that multinational corporations don't have your best interests at heart. I mean, maybe a woman could be hesitant because she has a whole closet full of that stuff, and so maybe we need to address what is going on in women's closets these days. We're gonna have to pull the skeletons out because a lot of people are biased. A lot of people have some baggage, okay?
Like my own sister's closet is the most
Oh, dude.
disorganized.
Oh, it's so
It's
over,
insane. I
man.
don't know how it's possible. It's like a vortex. It's like another universe, honestly. Women's clothing in their closet. It's just like, what parallel universe did this stuff come from?
Yeah, okay. Whoa. Hold on a second, guys. Can we get some hesitation in the chat? Oscar, you're not the first guy to say this, I don't think. Let's be very clear with what we're talking about. Let's not go in over our heads. This is not an endorsement of what is it? The abs on women.
Tomboy
Not
abs.
an endorsement of that, okay? This, hopefully Academic Agent is not watching this, okay? We are on the same page. Listen, he did a whole show on it, okay? No. I'm not saying I like that, okay? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the fashion. We're talking about some of the hairdos. As far as like the physique, not part of it, not part of the look, not part of the early 2000s look either, by the by. This is something that has been in the last 10 years. So let's please, I am not endorsing what is it, the tomboy abs? Okay.
Yeah, tomboy abs. That's it.
I defended the gym cells begrudgingly, but that does not mean I endorse everything that they say. If they're saying that stuff, I retract my earlier statement. This is not an endorsement of tomboy abs. Do not get me wrong. I am just here for the early 2000s wholesome Avril Lavigne look and nothing more, okay? Can we please correct the record? I don't want to see anybody thinking that in chat. That's not true. I don't like that, okay? It's not, like I said, it's not my thing. I said I'm not speaking as a gym cell. I'm talking about I'm saying there's some good people. There's some very fine people, and then there were some not so fine people. And in this case, you got some radical people endorsing the tomboy abs. It's a meaningful distinction. Tomboys and then this decadent part of it. So, okay, I want to set the record straight on that. So it's a different thing, different ballpark.
Yeah, and I will say the people who tend
My
to support the tomboy abs, who tend to be on the side of that, also tend to be deeply subversive people, who I'm not going to bring up, but I think we all know who I'm referring to.
No, for sure. Yeah, no. That's okay. The goth girls we're talking about, they don't have abs. Okay, in fact, I don't think they're eating. So, not that we endorse that either. We don't want any unhealthy goth girls. But I'm just saying, if we're gonna push back against the physique posting, the women we're talking about are in a decent shape at best. So don't get me wrong. We're not talking about these bodybuilders, these BAP types. This is the real anti-BAP take. A lot of people go after BAP. It should be because of this. It's because he's leading a decadent movement, telling women to get tomboy abs. Okay, you guys support this? Serious movement, by the way. You guys really on board with this? Because I think that's a little too far, frankly. So got to be careful. Please, all you people in chat, you disgust me. You disgust me, okay? Bafangul. These people, my goodness. We're gonna have to end the stream. Just too much bad thoughts happening in chat. Very disappointing. My goodness. We're gonna have to scroll up to go back to reality. Let me see here.
The tomboy abs thing is such a it's like such an inversion of how the female should be, and it's like, why do you like that as a man? It's like that's kind of cucked, honestly. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty cucked if you like that. That's not feminine. There's some things about women that are feminine that all men like, and that's pretty good, but you shouldn't like masculine things on women. That just doesn't. That's a big no for me. It's kind of gay, to be honest.
Frankly, it's troubling and it's reprehensible. So yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I don't know what's going on in the chat here. People are deepest lore on goth girls. I would any day, any second of the week. I would set the record straight because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And whoa, wait a second. Whoa, pause. No. Raging Mandrill. I saw you in the Twitter space. Listen, man, don't be fooled, okay? This is part of the Nuremberg agenda, okay? Don't let them take away your heroes, because the ones that were the real deal, they showed their cards. And Avril Lavigne is a fellow Christian, okay? So let's not, this is not a LARP. We have plenty of receipts to back this up, and you can look up the Love Sucks album, which just recently dropped. So I don't want to hear about any LARPing, okay? That's not what this is. And Preppy, as if there's no way. In what sense? I mean, even the Under the Skin album, as she went along, it's not like she had the Elvis arc, okay? She never really had like a raw album like the first one. But that doesn't mean she's selling out, okay? Please make no mistake. No. She's one of us, a solid person, a real goth, okay? And even all these years later, still pulling it off. So no. Yeah, the self-titled Avril Lavigne album. See, it's a totally consistent arc, please. Yeah, we are banning Yoga Pants Record Deepness. That's the take. Cuz it's we just don't endorse that. It's you just can't. You can't.
No,
Yeah.
that's like 1 degree separation away from Coomerism, if you ask me. If
okay.
that.
Rare bit. Well, okay, the scene girls talk about a broad term. We're gonna have to get a little more specific than that. Okay, there's, like I said, very fine people on both sides, but there were also some not so fine people. So we're gonna have to, the ones that are there for the right reasons. Of course, we have nothing bad to say about them, but of course, if you got these interlopers, like in the early 2000s emo scene, before it really, or I guess this may technically be 90s. I'm not quite so sure on the timeline. We're gonna have to consult the punk rock MBA, but he, that when the women first started to get integrated into the emo scene, I think those were the true believers. Everybody else after the fact, after those albums sold pretty well, though, that's when you got to be suspicious. Okay, that's when you're not really sure who's in it and for what purpose. So that's the whole thing, okay? So verdict on the scene girls, it's nuanced, okay? So not quite sure. It's tough. You can't even tell who's who anymore. That talk about gaslighting. Some some nuts. All right, yeah, Vingel, yeah, there you go. Okay. I think we're winding down a bit for all the sickos in chat. Going sicko mode in chat. Classic cars. Hey, somebody was also telling me after we were talking about Elvis excessively, might have to get into some of the car culture, because I know that kind of overlaps with the Americana that we like to promote. So maybe we'll get into that as well, just so we can have a more well-rounded show. But we'll see. Yeah, that's the other Richard Crook's so true. The thing is, like, as if these women are falling from trees. Where are you gonna find these women with six packs? It's a hard enough endeavor to get them off the couch. My goodness. So I don't think it's a very hard problem. We're talking about outliers. So thankfully we don't have to worry.
No, we just have to worry about the subversives promoting this degeneracy, who need to be dealt with.
There you go. Yo, Helen Hunt and Twister, bass guitarist. Yo, let's go. I didn't know BAMP supported that. Well, I don't know for sure if he does. I'm just saying. I mean, he's not really setting the bar. He's not making it clear that he's against it. So he's going to have to dedicate a podcast to set the record straight. Going to have to at Latinx Putler to ask him, where do you stand on this thing? Because, I read some of your book and didn't really get a clear answer, which is troubling. Because if there's ever any doubt, then that's kind of a red flag. Yeah, not worth thinking about. You're Richard, I think we can both agree. All right, did I miss anybody's questions? I don't want to. Joshua Ham, verified on Twitter. Gonna take over Congress with Thomas 777 Insight. That'll be the day, man. Glad to have you in chat. Aren't you supposed to be campaigning? That's pretty.
Oh, he's not running anymore.
Oh, not anymore. Gotcha.
No, he ran for Texas 12 or something, state house seat, but he didn't win that race. But I had a great conversation with him on my channel about political activism. I thought it was really good for younger people like me. And, gave some really good advice. So if you guys are interested in that, check out that interview.
Yeah, I'll check that out because I haven't gotten caught up with all the people joining here, so it's always nice to check them out.
Yeah, Josh is a really good guy. He's really base, as we like to say.
If a chick has tats, she has a banana. Interesting take there. Well, oh boy.
Now we're bringing the trannies in. Oh, that's even more. It's even worse.
That's the other thing. That's the most extreme part of that spectrum. Is they're introducing the would-be wholesome goths to this whole other world. So that's where we got to pump the brakes, and we gotta be careful there. Okay, I just moved close to Thomas. Whoa, real? Yo, let's go patrolling the streets with Thomas. Keep us safe over there. Awesome, man. Yeah, watch out for that Adam's apple. He's better get on. Okay. Crooner. Oh, no. Is Crooner a suspect? I see him post maybe some sussy stuff on the timeline. Is he, can we trust this guy? 2000 is utterly different. Yeah, Richard knows. Getting some on-the-ground coverage. Yeah, exactly. If you were there, you understand. You don't even have to come up with an explanation because you got the experience. These people today who think it's all one big thing. Yeah. All right. I want to make sure. I think we may have missed one of Thomas's questions here. But I don't like to neglect the chat. Thomas doing an Iran.
Corrected something.
Oh yeah. Doing an Iran-Iraq. I think he kind of talked about that with Academic Agent on the Saddam Hussein episode, which is behind a paywall. If you want to check that out, give Academic Agent some money. So there you go for that. Let me see here. I will say this. The first track on Lulu is heavy. Or actually, is it the second track? What's the one that has that riff? That's so Vingol, if you're still here, that would be maybe the one part of that album that I might like, but it's been a while since I've heard it. I must respect Jim. So yeah, Kai Schwimmer. He is a gym cell, so how can I hate on it? It's pretty that's the thing.
No,
yeah,
going to the gym is a requirement as a young man. As a man in general, you have to go to the gym.
It is.
And I've been slacking, so I need to get back on top of that. But it's really good, though. I like it. You feel really good afterwards.
It's true. You feel powerful. You feel like you can take on the world. So, okay, verifying one last time if we missed any questions. Man, this show is bananas. This show is off the wall. If I'm being honest, what I'm really craving are those banana pancakes from IHOP, the Minion pancakes. If I can just have a real human being moment on air for a second. I had those in Vegas just recently, and I'm a little distracted because that's all I can think about. I'm thinking about the sprinkles. I was pretty down on combining desserts and fruit. I thought it was counterintuitive, but I'm starting to come around. It's making a little more sense. I like it. And if I can also embrace my inner Zoomer by supporting the Minions movie, it's talk about two birds and one stone. So That's
No,
the
it's so
thing.
true. IOP has really good food, honestly. They're very
Yeah. Pouch Respecter was giving me some flack. My good. Is it because you're afraid of the robot waitress that comes over to your table? Look, man, you know that it's not that bad, okay? I can understand some people criticize Denny's. They think that's like the worst place to take your date to. But look, man, if IHOP is bringing out the the Han Solo menu, okay, the Fantastic Four menu, then I can't counter signal it, okay? You're just gonna have to put your preferences aside
We need
because
Thomas to break down the first Minions movie. Is what we need to do. We
mm,
need to happen. That needs to happen right there. That'd be an epic stream right there. Breaking it down.
it's you know, it is a fall from grace because each one does seem to get worse and worse. So it's tough. It's I don't like to go after my people, my heritage. You know, the minions, which is part of the family tree. But you know, we're starting to go off the wrong path. Don't really like the new character. So that's the problem, okay? Zoomers got to confront these things head on because they got the credibility. So they don't mix the chocolate milk thoroughly. Okay, dude, that's why you put your spoon in the thing and you do it yourself. Okay, is this difficult? Is that asking a lot? I understand it's not your job. Maybe that's a little lazy, but look, man, when she's bringing you a decent milkshake, you know, that's more than you can ask for in this life. So don't get too greedy, Pouch Respecter. You know, enjoy the little things. You know, I would imagine if I could have like a little like, what are they called? Not stewardess. What are you called? Like a little butler that would give you milkshakes live on the show. I'm not going to complain if that were to happen hypothetically. So yeah, that's the thing. The French toast is dry, not the one I had. Right? You know what? That was another restaurant. So I can't speak on that. No, dude, listen, maybe you just went to the wrong one, okay? Maybe you're just
It depends on which IOP you go to. It does vary because the one I used to
exactly.
live by was pretty good, but I went to another one in Sanford, which was pretty bad. So the quality will differ.
Yo, use bananas that didn't get. This is so wholesome. We're wholesome posting in chat. Add the mush and vanilla to the mix. We're getting some advice. Dude,
No, that's
thank
so
you,
true.
man.
It's really good,
Thank
honestly.
you, Mr. Ham. I think I'm going to have something in the kitchen here just based off of this comment. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Needs to tell us about the Minions, 1930s to 40s. Yeah, they don't want you to know. There's very few documentaries about that. So it's troubling.
Yeah, what do you think they were hiding in Antarctica? It's pretty open
Strange.
secret now.
Yeah. What is it? Growing up. Okay, now we're all in on bananas. We're going banana mode in chat. Like the pudding, you can eat with this. Yo, let's go. Let's go. Yeah, I'm thinking we're banana pilled in chat. You want a woman with Noahs, do you wanna join in on this? We got 50 people here talking about bananas. Do you want to
No, I
join
want
in
to have a
on this?
conversation about Nolas with Hungarian women. That'd be an interesting conversation.
why don't we do something a little radical here? Why don't we just put the Now this is really radical. This is really pushing the Overton window. If anyone wants to join, open mic on Loud Sound Epicenter.
Come on, Nolas. We have to have this conversation. It's either you're gonna have it here, or you're gonna have it on my channel. We have to have this conversation.
Yeah. Don't be afraid, man. We just got done talking about tomboy abs and bananas. So it's not like we're gatekeeping on topics over here. They're called ice cream bananas. Gotcha. Are we back at with the Barbie movie given the Gossing? Listen. Right now I'm Austin Butler pilled, so it's a bit of a rivalry with the Gosling crowd. I know that, by the way, Geo and Prude just put out a splendid video, I think on Thursday, which I still need to rewatch from the beginning. But they were talking about The Believer. What was it? The Believer, Drive, And what was the other Gosling film? I forget, which is basically a war crime for Zoomers. But look, I'm not throwing Gosling under the bus for his past work, but as of right now, there's some competition, and Austin Butler is beating him at the moment. I'm gonna have to reread that quote because, to tell you the truth, I wasn't totally on board with what he was saying. You know, I don't know if we can totally relate to Ken in the context that he's referring to. So maybe it's looking a little bit better, but you know, it's that, what is it? Greta Gerwig is the director. I don't have high hopes for her if she's at the helm for this movie. I see it as a potential subverter for the movement. I think it's going to lead people down the wrong path. And so I would just tell people, just be careful, okay? You know, we're still riding off the Elvis wave, and I hate to see people in their consumer mindset just jump onto the next film already. Elvis is literally me still right now, even though it's probably almost out of theaters. I saw that Prude had just watched it. So look, man, we're still riding that wave. He's going to put out something on his Substack. Stay tuned for that. So that's the thing. It's Gosling, you know, I like him, but if he is my enemy, then that's what it is. We're just gonna have to wait and see. I don't want to jump the gun on this one. You have to wake up early. Okay, understandable. You don't want to talk about, you know, eating banana off Tom Girl abs. I understand. It's very controversial. So yes, by all means, get some sleep. I feel like I haven't slept in like 2 days, so I can sympathize with you on that. Lars and the Real Girl, was that the one? Okay. Thank you, Joshua, helping me out over here. But I shouldn't have said that was too far. We don't endorse that on the show. Sorry about that. But yeah, be on guard, Brian, please. You know, stand back and stand by. You know, we don't want anybody charging the Capitol for Ryan Gosling. We don't want those martyrs. So, do we have anything else? We're sort of winding down here a bit, running low on. It is what it is. Yeah, it is. It is what it is. Maybe Oros. Do we have any Oros heads in chat?
I would send it to the Discord. Maybe one of them will pop in.
You got him? Okay. Thank you, man. Interesting stuff. Okay. Well, if that's all we have, then that's just about all we got for you guys here on this Monday evening show. So yeah. All right. By the by, Bass Guitarist is coming out with some music, so stay tuned for that. Go to his Telegram channel if he wants to post that in chat. That's something that's in the works. I'm trying to think. American Populist, you and I are going to be talking about California this week. Got to do some more research to prep for it, but can't wait to get on your channel and talk about the greatest state in these United States.
It was at one point. It was one of. I think actually it probably was the greatest country in the world. It could have been a part of its own history, but
could have. Let me think here. What else? I don't want to leave these people with nothing to ponder as we get off here. What is it? I thought this was a Monday to Friday plane. There you go. Let me check the chat one last time. Also, we're gonna get the studio updated in the near future, so stay tuned for that. We'll try and give you guys your money's worth over here.
I do want to say that the palm tree rightfully belongs to the state of Florida. Californians cannot claim that as their state.
Is that right?
The state of Florida.
Are you sure?
It does. It belongs to us. We are the first state actually the first city founded by Europeans, by the Spanish. So I think we can claim that title. We own the palm tree. You only co-opted it.
Okay. All right. Listen, when the Cadillo future saves us all and plants palm trees because it's their job at Home Depot, you're going to be feeling very sad when we totally revive the palm tree for our purposes. So I don't know, man. We might give you a run for your money, you know. Who's to say all the palm trees just mysteriously disappear on the Florida coast, you know? I guess it'll be ours to claim if that were the case. So, oh, Vingle is scramming. Vingle is scramming. Well, hey, good night, Vingle. Good to see you back in chat. It's been a while. Been thinking about you, big guy. Good to see you. Yes,
Good
bass
to see you as
guitarist.
well, Bingo.
Please check it out because, as we've said on the show, cannot stop shilling it. For anybody who is skeptical about the Elvis movie, the pacing is great, especially at the beginning. Some people might be overwhelmed, but I actually think that helps, not harms the viewing experience. And if you're not even a fan of the guy's music, which most people don't even check out his stuff on Spotify, just know that this is a film you'll enjoy regardless. So, any
No,
movie
it's
that can
pretty
pull that
good.
off. That's right. You
I say
saw
that
it,
as a
right?
person who doesn't really. Yeah, I saw it.
Oh,
I
let's
say that as a
go.
person who doesn't watch movies because I really despise Hollywood, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good, although it did have elements of subversion, but it was pretty good,
Yeah.
telling his story, major dramas of his life. But yeah, it's a pretty good movie. If you don't know anything about Elvis, I was one of those people, so now I know a little bit about him.
Yeah, it's a very enjoyable theater experiences minus some of the previews. So that's the thing. That's why everyone was shilling the Northman. Well, this is my version of that. You know, your latest modernity film that you can enjoy. So that's that. But yeah, palm tree reparations. So true. So true.
I'm gonna have to disagree. It belongs to Floridians,
We'll
not
see.
California.
Ace, final thoughts? Let me think. Let me think. Here's the other thing, too. Here's the other red pill, if you didn't see the last show on the channel. Leather is a neutral clothing item. I know Marlon Brando was sporting it in the Wild One. It is rebellious in a way. It's part of biker culture. But this thing that has happened with leather where it's synonymous with BDS, you know, or what is it? BDS is that's the Palestine. What a BDSM? What's I don't know. Anyways, people in this decadent sexual thing, people wear it. Look, man, you know, Elvis Presley was wearing that on the 68 comeback, okay? So I don't want to hear about the fact that it has to be this decadent counterculture thing. It's just a cool look. And so a lot of people wearing it today for the wrong reasons. It goes back to what we were saying about you got to be careful with the business skirts. You got to be careful with the modern goths because they're not the same as the early 2000s ones. It's all subversion. It's all gaslighting. They're trying to take away your culture, trying to strip you away of your own, the little amount of cultural memory that you have left. They even want to subvert that as well. So remember, you know, Marlon Brando, despite some stuff he did in the 60s, was not this totally degenerate personality, at least not at the time of the Wild One. I'm speaking to a very specific era. We do that with Elvis too. If you want to counter signal 70s Elvis, just remember 50s, we were in a pretty good spot. And we don't have to mimic all the degenerate aspects of the American heroes. You know, we can acknowledge that some of that stuff is cringe. And so when our heroes fall short of our expectation, you know, we like to separate the good from the bad. So that's the thing. That's the thing with leather. That's the red pill, you know. Leather as this anti-American symbol, this anti-nature symbol, wasn't always like that, okay? So that's that. Those are my last words. Yes, thank you,
I love
Knowles.
how in the movie Elvis, like later on in the movie when he's on the Hollywood sign and these guys come up to him, like, "What do you want to do with your career, man?" And they're all just these hippie hippy dippy liberals, the shit libs. They're just like, I'm just like, why are you listening to these people? You got some bad friends. You should have listened, to what
Tell
your
me
mom
about it.
said. You should have listened, Elvis, to what your mom said about this deeply subversive friends.
That is, dude, that is so true. And when Elvis's mother was like telling him to be careful during that first half of the movie, you could argue that's the peak of Elvis. And I don't think that's a coincidence when you have that tight family unit supporting you. That's the kind of thing that makes Elvis the icon cool. It's not a guy who's rebelling against his parents. He was a mama's boy, for goodness sakes. So that's the whole thing. People want to make him out like he was this, like the Beatles. He wanted his generation to be hippies. He actually wanted the exact opposite. That's why the Nixon Elvis trip is so important. But anyways, we've said that in droves for the past few weeks, so I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing it by now. We're gonna get some new content here on the show. We're gonna try and get into some PaleoCon content. We're gonna try and get into some Mel Bradford, maybe even some Buchanan. Skeptical Waves just put out. I saw. Very happy to see the what is it? The ethno-nationalism was one of the things Buchanan wrote about, or maybe it was a speech. I haven't checked it out yet, so that was just a cool thing I saw on my feed. We're gonna try and get some structure on the show. We're gonna update some of the studios so that it's not just Christian Slater's desk. So a lot of things are being planned for you guys. I don't want you guys to think we're slacking off over here. Far from it. We're just trying to stay on top of our game here. So okay. Pause. That's the thing, TB. There was also a cast member on Rebel Without a Cause who was kind of sussy. Look, we obviously there are bad influences in the Hollywood culture, so we would just, we like to take the good and abandon the bad if that's possible.
I love the mini M&Ms he has on his desk. I love those. Those are really good. The mini M&Ms.
Talking about this?
Yeah.
About this over here? Yeah, we support it. We support it big time. We even support the green M&M. Is she on there? Yeah, we're back. I'm thinking we're so back. Excellent. All right. What better high note to end on? I think we're all in agreement over here. So yeah, we love. No, the desk is gonna stay. Desk is gonna stay. We're just gonna try and help with the background a little bit here. Maybe we can make this look like a news desk. We'll see. We'll see. You guys can recommend stuff in the Discord for those of you that aren't in there. If you guys ever want to take advantage, please. Yo, Sam Francis. Yeah. I know Thomas was giving a little bit of pushback, but there's plenty of content to get in there, especially with like elite theory. AA talks a lot about Burnham. He talks a lot about Pareto, the Italians. We love our Italians. But Sam Francis was talking about it too. So we could definitely explore that stuff because it is on the table. It is on the table. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, American Populace, for tuning into the after show segment. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for giving me the time of day as always, because you're a cool dude and we'll be collabing pretty soon here. So
no, yeah, I can't wait to go into it. I've learned some interesting stuff about the Golden State.
There you go. Yeah, remember, this was Nixon country, all right? This was Nixon country through and through, okay? This state could have voted for Wallace if it wanted to. And it kind of did. It kind of did a little bit, if you think about it a certain way. So that's the thing. Maybe we need to get Nixon on the wall. Who knows? Maybe that's part of the deal. But I want to thank one last time to our winners in chat. I want to thank Nolas, who I was happy to speak with for the first time on Wednesday. Thank you, big guy. Going off on some history. I love that. TB88. We got Elon Bust, bass guitarist, of course, Brian, Richard Crook, Vingel, Joshua Ham, going ham in chat. Pouch Respector, Jay Burden, of course. Y'all better not be talking. We are Jay Burden. It's so over for you, big guy. Not going to make it if you don't like goths. More studs for me and American Populace, I guess. More black lipstick on our collars. Sorry, big guy. Not going to make it. Hey, Jay, Vernon, I'm a little busy. I'm a little busy right now. Can't make it to your show. I'm a little preoccupied at the moment with Savannah. So yeah. So sorry about that, Jay. Record deepness, Oscar, of course. Thank you, BK. Who else? Who else? What do we got? Millennial Woes, and apparently Ace rates Avril Lavigne way too highly. Oh, Fingal, please, please. What are we talking about? Hey, Millennial Woes likes her. Can you give me a link? And all you guys watch his show. Send me a link of proof of that. I'm gonna have to verify. I never really got into his content, but if he's saying stuff like that, might have to hit the subscribe button. So hey, one last favor, if I may, if you guys don't mind, please find that video. If you find it later on, let's get the Discord in the chat here. If you guys find it later, this is huge, man. This is really important. So hold on a second. Gonna have to work overtime to verify this. I am so hungry. So give me a second here. I'm gonna put this in the chat. And maybe we can learn a little something. This is why I'll never be invited to the deepest lore, is because these older folks, they're gonna tell me, you really like that goth aesthetic? You think that's cool? I don't think.
No, you should just do a whole stream about that. That would be really funny.
I don't think it's cool. I know it's cool. I'm 100% certain that it's awesome. And frankly, it speaks to your ignorance if you don't think it's cool. Hey guys, this is the fair warning in chat. Please, calling all patriots. It is Goth Girl night at the White House. Please.
Jay, I don't want to hear anything from you from the rest of the night. You're pretty much a heretic at this point. So you've been branded with the big letter A in town. You're gonna have to do some serious reparations if you want to come back and be invited.
See, this is the problem with this guy. We're not horny posting. That's not what it is. We've just look, man. I don't know how many. Why would we make a distinction between the modern goths and the old ones? Because there's a difference. And one of the biggest bad influences on the modern ones is that they're in this totally decadent scene. They're getting influenced by transgender culture. They're getting infiltrated by homosexuals. And the women, as somebody said earlier, they're not ready to defend their culture. They're not, in tune with the stuff the way that we are. So we're trying to help them out. We're trying to show them, listen, become who you are, Savannah. Become who you are, and don't fall for these traps. Don't fall for the transgender industrial complex. There was a whole book written about this, and it might have been directly targeting the goth demographic. That we don't know that for sure. So that's the whole thing. The whole point of defending early goths is because they're not degenerate. They're not sex crazed. They're not these, groupies. These are wholesome women. These are the wholesome women, childbearing women. That could potentially be your woman, your wife. So that's why we make that distinction. It's not because we have this like sexual fantasy about goth women. Speak for yourself, Jay. There's none of that happening on this side of the desk. Can't speak for everybody else, but once again, man, just a nasty guy. Guy's got his mind in the gutter. My goodness. Please exit this chat if there's any confusion. Please. So anyways, what even is irony? There you go. Whoa. Elon Musk knows what I'm talking about. Yo, let's go. No, kidding, of course. All right. I think we've pretty much had our limit of goth content in this show alone. So we're gonna leave it at that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you to American Populist. And let me put his content in chat because the guy is a certified Chad, Giga Chad, Mega Giga Wholesome Chad.
Yeah, we're in a really good live stream this week about the history of the great, great coastal state that once was California. Interestingly enough, actually, Southern California predicted what was going to happen eventually. I mean, they called San Francisco the sodomy of the West Coast, so he was pretty right.
What the? All right. So that is American Populist. You can also find him on Twitter. We can get that in there as well. Why not? Why not? While we're here. My goodness. All right.
Now, please do this help. I appreciate you guys subscribing.
Yeah, you guys. Be a patriot, Lydia. Down your... That's really something. That's really something. Okay. All right. So next time I will be joined with American Populist on his channel. Be sure to tune in for that. It's I haven't told him this yet until right now. I'm thinking Wednesday is going to be appropriate for us to have a pretty cool show. So I want to have proper prep until then. And after that, as Thomas said, maybe we'll be back with the crew this weekend. No promises. But then besides that, I think we're also going to be giving Paul Fahrenheit a ring on the telephone. And so you might see me on his podcast pretty soon here. I know that he's been meaning to do something. So that's the thing. That is the thing. And that's all the content I have prepped for this week. Eventually, we're going to try and get Nigel Carlsbad on the show. Even though we spoke with Joel Davis, there's a bit of a rivalry there, but that's okay. We like to mingle with all sorts of types, including him. And then what else? What else is coming down the pike? I don't know what else is coming down the pike. So that's what's going down. And yeah. Alrighty. So thank you guys one last time. Appreciate you stopping by. Always happy to be joined with you. And thank you one last time, American Populist, for tuning in our insanity hour. So thank you guys. And we will be back in here in the near future. Take it easy and enjoy the rest of your week.